Hello and welcome back. MC1 Gamer here, bringing you, well, this is another one of those Build Me a List episodes. So, what I've been doing, if you haven't seen these before, is I've invited people who either are new to the hobby, new to Age of Sigmar, or maybe transplants from other games, or have come over from maybe 8th edition and they are now looking to take the plunge into Age of Sigmar. Maybe they've even tried it and it didn't work for them, but now with the General's Handbook, with points, this is something more in line with what they're interested in. And they want to see how they can take the plunge with what they have existing in their collection now. And that's something that I've been doing since the first launch of Age of Sigmar. I was there day one, like many other people, but unlike a lot of the community, I stuck with it, even though I had some challenges in the first couple of games. And I decided to start a unlocking series where I dissected all of the old army books and have incorporated a lot of that into a lot of new unlockings, just really looking at synergies and how the rules work and how best to build lists and how to play the game and how to enjoy it, but how to understand Age of Sigmar, because it's really a hard game to understand when you first walk in the door. A lot of people, a lot of the old trolls and man-children who raged about it have proclaimed that it's only 4 pages of rule books and it's only for kids, only for children. It's very simple. There's no strategy, all this other stuff. And though that's nonsense, but there's a lot more depth that you will learn as the game goes on, and it's one of those things like poker where it's really easy to learn the rules, but it's very difficult to master. There's a lot of layers to this game, and building a list is the first part. You can really kind of go on the fly with an open play mentality where you deploy what you have, and you have that sudden death type of it's not only sudden death, but it's kind of a game of chicken, deploying what you have and then stopping what you went, with certain implications, which is fine. But for a match play environment, things are a bit different. There's now points. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to evaluate when you're looking at whether or not something is worthwhile or not to put on the board. And if you're looking to optimize with all of the models available, the options available, if you had the perfect world, that would be one thing which I've done, and which I've done with some of my colleagues in the Warhammer YouTuber community. But there's also the idea that not everybody has access to everything. Maybe they're new to the hobby. Maybe they just started with a get starter box and they have a few units they purchased, or they're looking to slow grow, which is like an escalation league thing that I'm doing at a local shop right now. But more to the point, there's a lot of people who have an existing army that worked for them in 8th edition and previous editions, maybe fully painted, maybe beautifully painted. I can't speak tonight. Maybe it's a couple of beers that I've had. Or maybe it's a situation where they have this army and they want to see how they can optimize it to maximize it for playing a game in Age of Sigmar with the General's Handbook in mind, with point structure, with synergies, with strategy, and with the idea of what the scenarios are. Just in the General's Handbook alone, there's 6 or so scenarios that very much cover the gamut. They have a spectrum of needs that you really have to kind of plan for, where you might have volume and quantity of your units. You need to have some heroes. You need to have you need to be able to be mobile. There's a lot of different factors that are involved in those scenarios, rather than just in old school tournaments where it was just kill and get points based on what you take down. The one of the best things about Age of Sigmar, especially in the competitive arena, is that it's not just about what you destroy. There's goals in mind. There's objectives. You need to achieve them. So when it comes to existing collections or a predetermined list to pick from, it's not always easy. It's a lot more challenging to build from that list and try to make something that's reasonable, and then try to see where you expand from there to kind of optimize it further. It's kind of making the best of a bad situation, or maybe not the best of a bad situation. I've done a couple of these where somebody would have a pretty good collection. But so don't look at this if you're a viewer just enjoying this while you're doing your hobby time and say, well, that's not the best possible list, because that's not what we're looking at here. This is not going to be the best possible list. And this is a collection of Wood Elves that this particular viewer was nice enough to send me, wanted a little help, and I'm happy to help anybody else who wants to send these things to me. I'll get it into the queue and try to tackle them as quickly as I can. But this was Rob Johnson, who had sent me his list, which is kind of a compilation. I hope I got the name right. Rob Johnson? Yep, it's Rob Johnson. Just want to make sure. This is a compilation of his existing collection, and he was nice enough to go ahead and send me some pictures as well. So I'm going to go ahead and show some of these pictures. and we'll see if we can go. He picked this up apparently on eBay. So, you know, I think this is pretty cool. This is a picture of an old school Warhammer 8th edition Wood Elf army. And he's going to have some benefits and some disadvantages based on the fact that this is, you know, this is not something that's necessarily optimized for Age of Sigmar, but we can make hay here. We can definitely make something that's going to be reasonably competitive, and it could still be fun. It may not be a top tier optimized with every last point taken in consideration, but that's not always what everybody's looking to, you know, to do. Some people are looking to just be part of that competition and see how well they can do. And the best generals will do well with with less than optimized perfect lists. That's what really separates, you know, kind of, you know, the men from the boys, the women from the girls. All right, so this is another picture. Let's go take a look at another one of his pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go zoom in a little bit more. You know, this is just an example. I'll go through the list in a second. Just wanted to go share some of the pictures. He's even got an old school treeman here, so we're going to have some challenges. It's on a smaller base. And hey, you know, if it's on the base that it came with, it's on the base that it came with. Just deal with it. These are square and rectangular bases. You're not going to have, you know, there's going to have different advantages and disadvantages based on that. You go to an event, like some of the events that I'm going to be going to into the new year, they're going to require you to put in round and oval bases. They're not going to require you to do squares, but there are some events where they're fine. They're like, hey, bring whatever you want. We want to be inclusive. If you have an old school army and you haven't updated it, you know, you're not new to the to this, or you haven't done anything crazy stuff like me where you're rebasing everything you have. You got great basing materials. You want to take what you have. You're going to have some limitations. You know, hopefully they're doing, you know, measuring, you know, model to model, which is a standard rule. But if they're measuring base to base, you know, that's going to provide some inconsistencies. But you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to figure that out, and it's really going to be something you have to talk about with the TO. But there's a lot of events out there, local events, and still some regionals that are accepting the fact that, you know, some people are just not looking to make new armies, and they would like to take the stuff they've had for a while, they've worked on for a long period of time. They want to mess with it and bring it. So this is one of those situations, and I think this gentleman got this on eBay for a decent price. And, you know, these are nice. These are nicely painted. You know, they're not going to win necessarily a painting award, but they're painted, and they're fully painted. They're not simply painted. There's multiple colors here. There's good basing scheme. You know, they're all uniform, and he can add to this if he wants to advance it further. But it'll be kind of a criminal thing to try to rip it apart and try to rebase this particular army. So you play it as is. And he's got some stuff that, you know, we can work with here. So let's go back to this. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about, you know, what he's got, and we're going to pull up his actual list. Yeah, here we go. All right, so let's first get rid of that. So this is what he's got. I will zoom in just a little bit here. I think I'm already zoomed in well enough. So he's got 24 Glade Guard, which are battle line. He's got 5 Wild Riders, the 3 Hawk Riders, 15 Eternal Guard, 1 Spellweaver, 1 Forest Dragon with the Sisters of the Thorn on top of it. That's an awesome model. And 1 Tree Man and 12 Dryads. Now, in old school 8th edition, you paid by the model. You didn't pay by the unit or minimum unit size, which is a thing now in Age of Sigmar. And that can kind of complicate things, because if you're 1 or 2 models short, you're either paying the full price for an underpowered unit because you don't have the models, or you don't take those extra guys and you find something else that you can qualify for. And then down the road, maybe you can find the extra 1, 2, or 3 models that will complete that particular segment to try to get those points. And maybe you don't need to, maybe you don't want to. You know, maybe it's not necessary to do that because you don't need, or it's not really the value isn't there for that extra 5 or 10 guys to pay that extra points. You're okay. It really depends on your personal preference. But with what he's got here, I'm going to do this twofold, the way I've been doing it in the past. I'm going to show you what you can do with what you've got, and I'm going to show you what you can do kind of playing with a few things to expand to. So the first thing here is, let's just see just basically what he's got. He's got a really solid 1,000 or 1.5K army. You know, he's not going to get to 2,000 points here, and there's going to be some stretching that you're going to have to do, because this is a combination of a Wanderer's Wood Elf list with some Sylvaneth, and it's been broken out. It used to be Wood Elves encompassed all the Wood Elf units, and then Sylvaneth stuff like Dryads and a Tree Man. Well, that changed considerably in Age of Sigmar. And you can do that. You can do that with a variety of different crossovers underneath the Order umbrella, which is everything from Empire to Bretonnians to Dwarves to all the Elves, all combined. Sylvaneth is broken out by itself, but you can also do all the different elf factions. You could do Lizardmen and Stormcast. All this stuff is kind of jumbled into the huge Order faction with a lot of different options and a lot of different ways you can cross over and have different sub factions in here. But there are benefits if you stay within a sub faction. Sometimes there are battle line units that open up that you wouldn't normally have unless you stay with one keyword sub faction. There are also battalion scrolls. These are things that we're not going to be talking about today, though. What we're talking about today is trying to make hay with what we've got. And what we've got here is an all wood elfy list with some stuff that crosses over to Sylvaneth and some stuff that's in the compendium that's not even part of the more modern, repacked stuff with updated war scrolls. In any case, they all work. They're all legal. They all got points. Everything you can see here has got points. They all can be played. And anybody who is restricting compendium stuff is fooling themselves and is foolish. Don't do that. Don't make people not have to play with their toys. Don't put those restrictions in. They're points. They're legal. Don't try to do that if you're TO and you're listening to this. Please don't, because that's just wrong. It's awful. All you're doing is restricting more people that can come and play the game. But the idea is okay, this is what his selection is. So he's got the 10 great Glade Guard, which is good because he's got some battle line, which are the old core type requirements from 8th edition and earlier editions that have been kind of brought back within a match play environment. Wild Riders, he's got 13 of those. He's got 3 Warhawk Riders or Hawk Riders, whatever. He's got 15 Eternal Guard, 1 Spellweaver, the Forest Dragon with the Sisters, a Tree Man, and 12 Dryads. Okay, so what are we going to do with that? Well, what I have here listed is the fact that you have to make some decisions here. You're not going to be able to take all 24 Glade Guard. You're not going to take all 13 Wild Riders. So how I built this out, and you have the points here. This is the points that it cost for the minimum values. And what I have here is the number of those that you can take. Now, you can break them out into multiple units. For anything under 2K, you need 2 battle line units. So, like for instance, if you're doing a 1,000-point game, anywhere 1,000 to 2,000, you need 2 battle line. Okay, I know there's some people that are don't agree with that. There's a small segment of misguided, confused people that think that the chart says something else. But for as long as these charts have been around, this is how it's worked. So if you don't like that, you feel free to leave the show, because I'm not going to entertain the stupidity and lunacy that's out there with some of these people that just don't seem to get it and don't seem to see the history. But hey, if that's how you want to play it, go be my guest. But this is how it works. The chart, if at 2,000 plus, you need 3 battle line units. At 25K, you need 4. And you want to have some battle line. So it's good that you have battle line, Rob. So you have certain options. You can combine them into larger units, but you have enough that you have room to play with if you don't buy anything else, even if we can manage to get you up to 2,000 points, which is the standard, most common tournament level that we're seeing. Okay, some tournaments are looking to go bigger. Some are doing 1,500. Either way, whatever it is, 2,000 has been the most common that I've seen, and the most common I've seen even in the local region that I'm at. And there's about 6 stores within driving distance of me that I frequent, some more than others. Everybody's playing 2,000 points. So most people I've spoken to that are tournament organizers, they're doing 2,000 points. So that's where you really want to get to. But in an escalation situation, simple, quick games start around 1,000 points, 1,500 points, and then you work towards that 2,000. But that's going to be where most organized events are going to go. So this is what his collection is, and I have kind of the point structure, but this is not necessarily the list. The way I look at it is you have 10 minimum for the 120 points on the Glade Guard, so you really only have enough where you can take 2 units of Glade Guard or 1 unit of 20. So let's take a look real quickly at Glade Guard and why this might be a good thing. So Glade Guard, all right, Glade Guard. All right, they're going to be your shooting units. They're going to be your archers. For Wood Elf Army, you need to have some shooting. That's what they're really good at. They're good at mobility. They're good at shooting, and they're good at any combination of those types of things. Making it hard to catch them, making it hard to hit them, making people pay for taking the bait and chasing them. So you're going to have 20 of these. You have as much as 24, but you have 20. If you want to get 6 more of them, that's great. You can do that, and you'll have 30, and you have more options. But let's just stick with what you have. The extra 4 are just extra models at this point. You're going to be buying them in blocks of 10. So whether it's 1 unit of 20 or 2 units of 10, that's up to you. The only reason why you would take 2 units of 10 is if you needed the extra battle line, and that's something that we're going to look at when we get to, say, for instance, getting up to 2,000 points, because then you need an extra battle line unit. So it might warrant you to do that. The reason why to take it at 20 is because until you've actually you lost the models from this unit, you get the benefit of an extra +1. This is this Peerless Archery. You add +1 to all hit rolls made for a unit of Glade Guard in the shooting phase if it has 20 or more models, and if there's no inches within no enemy models within 3 inches of you. That means that your 4 up to hit becomes a 3 up, and that's big. And you have a 20-inch range. Each of these guys only get 1 shot, and they have no rend, and they only do 1 damage. That's not great. So you need to be hitting if you're going to be shooting. So the fact that you have 24 of them, you might want to think about getting an extra 6 for some versatility, but 20 is good. And I would take the 20. And if you have the extra points, you might even want to take the extra hit for additional points to have the 4 guys as an extra buffer. So if you lose a few, you still get that extra +1. But it's not the most important thing. You could easily just take this unit as 2 units of 10, so you qualify for battle line when we get to 2K. What's nice here is that they have this. This is where you've got to take advantage of this, and that's why I also feel that it's important to even break these guys out into 2 different groups, because then you can cover more area. And this is the unit that you want to drop on heavily armored heroes. You have good range. You want heavily armored units where because that once per game you get this arcane botkins, and look, is it worth it for you to take them for the points that they're costing? Maybe not, but you have them. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this arcane botkins. If what happens is you shoot, and that 1 shot that you declare as the arcane botkins will be -3 rend. That's incredible. All right. Yeah. You want to have 20+ guys if you can when you do this. So hopefully you get the first turn, and hopefully you open up with this right away. You move your guys up 6 inches. You're right at the border. Now, 24 inches will divide you. Anybody's on the deployment line in your opponent's phase is going to be in range because you've moved 6 inches. So you've got a 26-inch range basically from where you start with. So you hopefully have deployed these guys right at your line, or maybe 2 inches in, or 1 inch in from your line, from your max. And you unleash these guys once they move up a little bit to get within range. And barring any other enhancements, you're hitting on 3s if you have 20, or otherwise 4s. But whatever hits and wounds is going to be a -3 rend, which is going to basically wipe out most armors. And even a 3-up armor, which is hard to find. That's not common, is going to be a 6-up. All right. Suddenly you're going to be doing wounds, and are you going to be doing an incredible amount? You're going to be doing a few wounds, but against those hard to hit, hard to crack, can opener, you want a can opener for this. You'll be getting some wounds in, and if it's a character, you could be doing very well, especially if you're doing this as a 20-man unit that's not been diminished at 3-ups. That -3 is going to wipe right through standard saves. So that's a big deal. That's important. The rest of this is not really that impressive with this army, but they are battle line, and you need battle line. So that's what we have there. So you make your choice and decision on what you need to do. The other battle line unit is going to be these Dryads here that you have. The Dryads, for Dryads, in a non-Sylvaneth list, that I wouldn't take them. But if you're going to take them, you got to keep in mind that they do best when they're next to a Sylvaneth wood. Okay, and you want to get. Now I'll show you. I'll go over this later. You want to get a couple of Sylvaneth woods. You make them yourselves. You buy the official Citadel ones. You need a few of these bases. You need like 2 to 4 of these bases just to deploy into the game, because you have an advantage being in proximity to them, and then you're immune to the effects of them, which your opponents won't be. And then you could deploy them in the midst of the game when you have some Sylvaneth stuff. There is a way to do that. I'll go through that shortly. But the Dryads themselves shine when they're in large numbers and they're near Sylvaneth wood. So let's go take a look at those guys. And we're talking about here, 12 of them, unfortunately, is all you have. That means that, that 10 is the number for 120 points. I would love to see you get 8 more of them. If you're going to field some Dryads, you don't need to. You could replace these guys right out because they're not really synergizing that well with the Wood Elves, but they are reasonably well enough that it works in the context of this is your list, and let's see what we can do with it. Okay, so Dryads. Let's see where I found my. There we go. Dryads. Okay, Dryads. So Dryads have 2 attacks, All right, there are 4 up to hit, 4 up to wound, no rend, 1 damage. Not very stellar, but they do have 2 attacks each. So you're going to get 20 attacks with your 10 starting guys. What's nice is that if you're within 3 inches of one of these wild Sylvaneth Wildwoods, they're -1 to be hit against 1 unit. You can declare this. You subtract 1 to all hit rolls. No, against anybody. Excuse me, against the Dryads. You're -1 to be hit. That's the kind of Nurglish effect. It's really very effective. They don't have a whole lot of armor. They've got a 5-up save, but if you sit them within the woods, then they're going to be a 4-up. That's better. If you happen to have more of them, like if you have at least 12 in the unit, which is kind of a strange number, but again, this was pre-General's Handbook. General's Handbook was kind of tacked on and didn't really take into consideration a lot of these other little tweaks and rules, with the standard unit sizes and all this other stuff of a lot of abilities. So you really want to have, in my opinion, 20 because it gives you a buffer of 8 before you lose this. But if you have at least 12, you get an extra +1 to the save. So theoretically, if they're next to a Sylvaneth Wildwood, they could have a 3-up save. Okay, 4-up because they're close to a Sylvaneth Wildwood. No, excuse me. If they're within the Sylvaneth Wildwood, they have +1 from cover and 1 from the quantity. And as they get weakened, they'll lose that. And as you move them, if you need to, you probably, as long as you keep them, even one of them, doing the little conga line, as long as one of them is within range of the actual Wildwood itself, they're still also -1 to be hit against, shooting and close combat. So that could really give them some kind of durability because unfortunately they only have 1 wound each, which is kind of amazing. And they're on one of the larger bases too. I think they're on the 32 mils. Either way, they're battle line units, so they're going to provide that function as being one of your other battle lines. You have your Glade Guard and you have the Dryads. And they can do some reasonable damage, but they'll surprise you. The fact that they have two attacks each kind of helps. And then their general, of course, has 3. All right, so that's your Dryads. So those are going to be your 2 battle line units. Next, we're going to look at Wild Riders. Okay, so you have 13 Wild Riders. Now, you can get 2 more Wild Riders. You can go to bits shops, go to eBay, you grab 2 more of them, and you'll have 15. They come in groups of 5. So you pay 140 points for 5 of them. It's expensive. Let's see if they're worth it. I think using them in a block of 10 is effective. So you're going to buy this twice because you have 10. You have 3 left over. If you ever want to get 2 more, you'll be able to run theoretically 3 groups of these guys. But let's take a look at the Wild Riders. So let's see. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Want to make sure I got them all. All right. So Wild Riders. These guys were great in 8th edition, but they're okay in this edition. Now they have 2 wounds each. They have 2 attacks with their hunting spears. The mounts, the reindeer have 2 attacks each. Decent. They're 3-ups, 4-up for the riders. 4-up is pretty standard for mounts. No rend, unfortunately. But they're quick. They move 12 inches. That's big. The champion's going to get an extra attack. They have a standard that helps them with bravery. Okay, that's not something crazy sexy. They're expensive. We're talking 5 of these guys for 140 points. But let's also keep in mind now they get plenty of attacks, even though their hit and wound is not the greatest. And they have 2 wounds each. And they're a 5-up save, not terrible. They can reroll dice for determining how far they can run if they want to run. That's not bad, but the reason why that's important is because of their Unbound Fury ability. Wild Riders can run and charge in the same turn. Yes, this is one of the things that break that rule, where you can't run if you can't charge if you run. They can, so they're going to move at 12. They're going to roll a die 6 for an extra run because they know they can charge. They can re-roll the dice for running, so if you roll a 1, you can try it again. You might be able to get a 5 or 6, meaning the range it could be, anywhere from like that 14 to 18, which is good, which is better. 15 to 18, that's not bad. So you can get in there from further away from where your opponent can get to you. And when they charge, they add a 1 to their wound roll. So the hunting spear is going to be a 3-up. Okay, no rend. It's only 1 damage, but they're getting 2 attacks each. So a 10-man unit of them is going to be 10 attacks. That's, look, you're going to get some wounds in, especially, unfortunately against heavy armored units, maybe not so much, but, there's plenty of things that are not up at the 3 or 4-up saves in the game, like these. So these are going to be guys that are going to be moving quickly around the board, trying to get to objectives, trying to get to high-value targets like 5-wound characters or artillery pieces. and not necessarily taking and holding objectives, but perhaps if there's a late game or middle game objective that nobody's at or is kind of soft because of whatever attrition has occurred, they may be able to get there pretty quickly. And the nice thing about them being able to run in charge means if there's anything sitting there, they have that extra move that will get them there, and they can do some hurt when they do it. So they're mobile, and that's what everything is about when it comes to elves. Unfortunately, they can't shoot, but you got to make, there's going to be some concessions. Hawk Riders. Okay, now Hawk Riders are a little different than they used to be. They're actually now minimum of no, that's not Wild Hawk Riders. They're minimum of 1. Okay, maximum of 6. It's kind of unusual. So you could take a unit of 1. You could take 3 of them with 3 different units. They're individual deployments though, so just keep that in mind, because whoever finishes deploying first typically gets the first turn. And you want to be able to have that choice if you want the first turn or not, depending on what the scenario is. So having 3 of them as 3 individual units can be a liability, and having 3 in 1 unit can be a big advantage because there's more wounds before that unit disappears. The downside, of course, is that they only can attack 1 objective and be involved in 1 fight. And if you know that you have units, if you have lots of different objectives, or whether they're volume objectives, you need quantity of troops to take and hold the objective, or if it's just there's a lot of artillery and war machines that your opponents got, and you want to be able to hold them up and kill the crew or whatever, you might want to have a couple extra guys. So you can do that. It's at your discretion, but it gives you that flexibility. A lot of times, the minimum is 3 or the minimum is 5. In this case, it's 1. All right, but you can take more of them, so that's nice. But you have 3 of them, so that's going to be 120 points. So let's take a look at what the Warhawk Riders do. That's Wild Riders. Let's see, Warhawk Riders. Did I get them? Wildwood Riders? No, I don't think I picked them up. No. All right, so let's go look at the basic. Maybe because there's no War Scroll. That might be why. I may not have picked it up because there's no War Scroll for these guys. All right, so Warhawk Riders. Let's go find them here, and then we'll talk about them. Let's see. Warhawk. There we go. So Warhawk Riders. Maybe there is. Maybe there's not a War Scroll for them, and I'm just making a mistake. Okay, so all right. So they can have any number of models, as we said, between 1 and 6. There's a guy on top with a bow, which is nice. 2 attacks, 4 up. Now again, no rend. I don't think we're going to see a lot of rend here. They can fight fairly decently in close combat. They get 3 attacks each. They can add 1 to all wound rolls if they charged, which at 16-inch move, you're going to get the charge. You're almost surely going to get the charge. If you're not getting the charge, you're doing something wrong. They can fly, which means they ignore all the elevations stuff they're flying over when they're moving around, which again maximizes their 16 inches. When they run, you can add 6 inches to its move rather than rolling a dice. So it's automatically, if they need to run, they need to get somewhere, like hit an objective, they're flying 22 inches. That's pretty cool. Sweep through their lines. If after this unit has made all of its attacks in the combat phase, there are no enemy models within 3 inches, it can immediately pile in 6 inches and attack again. Okay, so what happens is if they're if in combat they either wipe out a unit, or it's pretty much going to be if they wiped out a unit. If they're the last ones to get activated, maybe they're in a multiple combat where somebody else does the work and they're finishing up. If they clean up those last few wounds and there's no other units within 3 inches, but there's a unit that's within 6 inches, they break that maximum rule of 3 inches, and you can activate a unit within combat. They can then do it within 6 inches. So they can basically swoop over or swoop across to a nearby combat or nearby enemy unit that's outside of that combat range to be activated, and then do some damage. It may not be a good idea because it may be a unit that could wipe them out, but you may be able to get some licks in, and certainly there's certain situations where having a flexibility could come to play. Just really consider whether or not you want to do it or not. But it's not a bad ability to have in your back pocket. And these guys are cheap. These guys are 40 points a piece, and there's not a lot of units in the game that are only 40 points. There's a lot of times where I've picking lists and you're down 60 points and there's just nothing to buy, or you're down 40 points and you just want to maximize your point total to whatever that game level is, and that 40-point unit can sneak in there. You can take 1 Warhawk Rider. So, they're sitting at 4 wounds, not bad. Terrible armor, but, look, these guys should be bouncing around, shooting, and not getting touched. Going after the war machines, whittling down heroes from far away, and then getting out of dodge. You should not be getting these guys necessarily into combat if you don't have to, unless it's to bolster another unit and provide that added punch to finish something off. Otherwise, this is a unit that can just be mobile and be where everybody is not, and just that automatic mobile platform that's just going to drop some wounds on opponents. So those are your Warhawk riders. You have 3 of them. I decided let's use 3. It's 120 points. Eternal Guard. Okay, so the Eternal Guard are they're they're okay. There's some question about whether or not anybody would want to take them or not. But let's try and see why you might want to take them. They don't have any shooting. They're a close combat unit. So they got 5 up base saves. Let's zoom in a little bit. All right. They got a decent move. They're elven move, 6 inches. They're only getting 1 attack each, which is unfortunate. They're only 5 up, 5 up. They do have 2-inch attack range. So if you have units of 20 or so, the back ranks are going to get to attack as well because that extra 2-inch range. And you have 15 of them, which means you're only going to be using 10. Now, you can get 5 more if you want to use more, but I don't know if that's worth it because I don't know if you really want to use more of these guys. I really don't. But you got more than 10, so you have a few extras in case you lose one or the paint's awful on another or somebody steps on it, or whatever. But I would use the 10. If you want to try and get 5 more and have options to field them as 20, be my guest. But let's go back to this. Let's go take a look at these guys. All right, so 5 up base save. They nothing extra special as far as the standard Hornblower, the pretty standard elven stuff. Fortress of Bows. In your phase, this unit can form a Fortress of Bows. If it does, it cannot move. So that already tells you right there what they're used for. They're used for taking and holding a position. There are plenty of objectives in the match play scenarios list, and you want to plop down a unit and then sit them there and hold that unit and collect your victory points or claim that objective and hold it for the game. That's what these guys are for. You're going to race them up to the nearest objective and then just defend it. And they actually get better when they're not just sitting still. This is not your mobile unit. You do not need this unit to be mobile. You want it to move, get into position, and stay there for the game and just say, come at me, bro. All right, so why? Because if they don't move, you can then add 1 to their hit rolls, their wound rolls, and their saves. That 5 up becomes a 4 up. All right? And their spears at 2-inch range are not 4 up, 4 up. They're now 3 up, 3 up. So they're doing much more. They're getting much more bang for their buck when they're not moving. All right, so as long as they can survive as they're moving to wherever they need to be and they don't take losses, when they get there at full strength, all of them are going to pretty much guarantee to be able to attack because of the range of their weapons, and they're probably going to hit, and they're probably going to wound. No rend, unfortunately. I would have liked that, but these guys are cheap. Let's see how much they cost. Just let's see here. So your Eternal Guard, 80 points for 10. That's not bad, honestly. That's like skeletons, and these guys are going to be more combat effective, even though skeletons can regenerate. All right, so then they have their shields. So yeah, you're at 4 up now, and we're not even talking about if you're on terrain, because most objectives are going to be not sitting in the middle of an open field. They typically are in forests or in hills or in buildings or whatever, more often than not. They're in some kind of a defendable structure. So you might even get to that to a 3 up. So now you can reroll failed saves of 1. You get to reroll that. Further ones will fail because of rule of 1 in match play. But if you're in cover, the reroll is if you're at 1 or 2. So the best optimal position is to get these guys into a very valuable strategic location in cover. They may even be blocking lanes between hills so that, doing the last stand of the 300 thing to get to an important objective. And if you're in cover, they're re-rolling 1s and 2s. They'll be at a 3 up save, and they're just sitting there stationary. That's not bad. They're a good, decent defensive unit, especially for the points, but they're not going to do much more than that. But you've got 15 of them. I would use 10. If you want to get 5 more, you may have more that you can bring. A unit of 20 would be better, and they're not that expensive to get that. So they can do that. They can definitely hold an objective or be a blocker, a spoiler for your opponents within these games. Because again, if they get wiped out and they've achieved their goal, who cares? It's not about the points as much as it is about the objective. All right. Next, you have a Spellweaver. I'm going to get to all these guys. So the Spellweaver is a caster, and let's take a look at what she can do. All right, so the Spellweaver, it's typical stuff. She's got a Heartwood Staff. She's got that Bows of Mystical Power. Blows of Mystical Power? What's that? All right, 5 wound character. We don't have to worry about all the different specific stats. Let's take a look at her abilities and her spell. Once per game, she can call upon the blessings when attempting to unbind a spell. If she does this, so that spell is automatically successful. If it does so, that attempt is automatically successful. All right, so once per game, she can automatically unbind a spell. If you're in range, you can automatically. That's not bad. That's not automatically is always good, because if somebody gets an especially good roll on a spell at some convenient time for them, that it's very hard to roll higher than, to be able to say nope, it's like a dispel scroll. Nope, you can't do it. That's pretty good. But you only can do once per game, so you better pick and choose. She's a wizard, so she can do a standard unbinding, but she's only going to be able to do, she's only able to do that once per turn. But here's her spell. She can do the Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield. That's always good. Again, Mystic Shield can have a lot of different dynamics on a lot of these things I'm talking about. But you're only going to get to pick one if it's a match play game, because the rule of one kicks in. But her spell is a cast of 5. And if it's successful, you find a Wanderer unit within 16 inches, and you can return die 3 slain models to that unit. This is pretty cool. You're not having to have to worry about points issues. You're not getting higher than the unit's starting value. You're returning models in a unit that hasn't been wiped out. It's completely legal. There's a lot of regenning abilities in the game that are completely match play compatible. You don't have to call to you from your reserve pool to bring them in. This is a nice spell that restores dead guys. So your Eternal Guard, for instance, that could be a big deal. Your Glade Guard with your archers, if you have 20 of them and you've lost 3 and you can grow 3 back, even if it takes 2 turns, you can get that extra +1 to hit. Why not? And, frankly, just having the ability to just bring back models so that a unit has more longevity is always a good thing. It's one of the things that stymies a lot of people when I play my Death Army against them, with some of the units that kind of restore models. It's not just unique to them, but it's it's pretty common in the Death Army. So it gives people fits. It's countered by other things, points and other abilities, whatnot. But that's a pretty good spell. I like that you have her, and it's a good thing to have, because anything with Wanderers is the key. You want to make sure they have the Wanderers keyword. So just to go back and check, let's check Glade Guard or Wanderers. You got to make sure that there's synergy. Eternal Guard, Wanderer. There you go. So no problems there. All right. Your Spellweaver can do that. On top of the fact that she can do an Arcane Bolt and a Mystic Shield whenever needed or desired. Your Forest Dragon with Sisters. I love this model. It is so expensive though, but it is worth the points, honestly. This is I actually got a model, not a GW model, but I got a model and I got some bits to make the Sisters on top of it just to play this. And this was pre-General's Handbook, so it was a little bit different, but it's still there. Oh, this is the Sylvaneth Wildwood. That's not what I wanted to pull up. Okay, well, let me, since I already did, let's pull it up. There's some extra rules that you should be considering with the Sylvaneth Wildwood. We'll get back to that. All right, so the Sisters is on the Wood Elf. Nope, that's not it. The Sisters is on the Wood Elf Compendium, because there's no version of this that has been updated, because it's their named characters. It's too bad, unfortunately. Let's see. Where's the Sisters of Twilight? Sorry if this is giving you a headache, but that's what it's what we endured to deal with this stuff. Okay, here we go. So they're Wanderers too, but that's not going to have any impact on that spell, by the way. All right. So Sisters of the Thorn. No, this is not. That's not right. Excuse me. We want the Forest Dragon with the Sisters of Twilight. So my apologies. There we go. All right. Let's see if we can zoom out a little bit and give you. There we go. They're also Wanderers. There we go. All right. So this is a 12 wound model, a dragon, 4-up base save, a lot of attacks, a lot of shooting attacks at good range, 20-inch range. Each sister has different benefits. Either 2d6 attacks or 1 straight up attack that does a lot of damage. All rend. Everything here does rend. That's what's great. Even the dragon has got one of these attacks that has -2 rend and die 6 wounds. So this is going to be able to do some serious damage from range and in close combat. And it's mobile. Unwounded, it moves at 14 inches. That's awesome. It has a breath attack that all enemy units, now I got to emphasize this, all enemy units, not your own units, that are within 3 inches, and it's a dragon. So if you're playing model to model, it's going to be everything, all its tail, its snout, its wings. If you're playing base to base, it's going to be on a sizable base. And unfortunately, the old version model is on a very small, I think 50 mil. So put a better base on it, buddy. You need it. It's supposed to be. It's a dragon. In Age of Sigmar, they all are on like 120s and higher. That's pretty much where you're going to be at the very minimum, maybe a 105, because I think that a lot of these dragons were on like chariot bases. But I think those are like 100 by 150. Not 100 by 150, but 100 by 150 is a big monsters. Get it on a 120 oval, 120 by 90 oval. That's probably the more appropriate. And you could plop your pre-existing one on there and just build around the square so that it could sit there, just magnetize it or something. But you probably want to know something bigger, because this ability is really what's important here. 3 inches in radius around this model. Anybody who's there in the close combat phase who's an enemy fights last. You get all your attacks in for all your units, and then they get to go, which is key, because anybody who's able to attack is going to go before those models, and you can diminish them and dwindle them down, and then they get to fight back. You might wipe them out, or you might just diminish the numbers, the volume of what's coming back at you, and that can have a big effect, because if anybody who's played Age of Sigmar knows, in the close combat phase, activating the order in which you activate and the strategy that you use to activate has a huge implication. So that's big. All right, and I think that's one of its best abilities. It's an impetuous beast, so if it's within 12 inches, it has to charge. All right, so the fact that you're 14 inches away, that you can 14-inch move means that you're going to get where you need to go. But if you get there, you better be prepared. This thing is going to be in combat, because it's going to, unless you fail the charge roll, that is. It has some benefits from the missile weapons, the bows, either for order or for chaos. So it gives you some diversity for a tournament event, because you have some benefits for different types of armies. And then this conjoined destiny. This is nice. At the end, it says in each of your hero phases. So let's say you've been damaged in a previous turn. In each of your hero phases, roll a die. If the result is odd, nothing happens. If it's even, meaning 2, 4, 6. You roll a die. You have that number, and that's the number of wounds you heal. So it has a healing mechanic. So it can actually get better or survive longer if, not guaranteed, but, we're going to assume that half the time, meaning, 2 or 3 turns, you're going to get a chance to roll this. And you're going to not just going to get a chance, you're going to roll it, and then you're going to get anywhere from 1 to 3 wounds back each time. So you could pretty much add roughly about 5-ish wounds onto this thing in terms of its total number of wounds. Even if you want to say it conservatively, 3 or 4, that means it's a 14, 15, 16 wound model in effect, and that's big. All right, so not a bad thing to have. You're going to move this thing. Don't rush up your monsters all the way forward if you can all help it. Screen it with other units. Pick and choose where you want to go at. What do you want to go at? This thing's going to lay waste to large blocks of units, just because you're going to be able to whittle them down before they can react back to you. Whether they're heavily armored or not, you're going to take models off the board. How it's going to do against other behemoths, that's a question. It can still do some damage, and it will stand in there with most tough stuff. But there's some really powerful things in the game, and this thing could die or get severely diminished in one turn. So be mindful of that. All right, but it's wonderful to have, and it's so many great strategies, especially if it's in conjunction with several units attacking within that range of units that are limited because of the breath. You could get basically all your attacks in from several different units before they can fight back. All right, next is the Treeman. Now, you have a standard old-school Treeman, all right? It's not a Tree Lord. It's not a Tree Lord Ancient. It's not Durthu, or a Spirit of Durthu. It's just a Treeman. So you get to really decide what you want to do with it. And I got to tell you, I would definitely choose the Treeman Ancient. I mean, no one's really going to complain. It's on a small base, just like your dragon. But, you can plop it down on a base and just kind of block out that little square and build up the base around it and put some flocking on it just for, a match play game, or not. Either way, it's a Treeman, so it's going to be. I would say pay for the extra, make it an Ancient. Why? You don't have a lot of spell casting in this army. Your Spellweaver is your leader, and is your your wizard, and she's got she's going to have her own work to do. You want to have some redundancy, and there's another reason why, and that's because Treemen have some fun special abilities. 300 points for a Treeman. It's well worth it. Let's go take a look at a Treeman Ancient. Let me pull that up. And I'll tell you about the Wildwoods right afterwards. Let's see. Glade Guard, did I not pull it up? No, I didn't. There it is. Okay, good to know that I actually did my homework. Okay, Tree Lord Ancient. All right. Tree Lord Ancient, 12 wounds. It's another behemoth. You're well within the behemoth max threshold. It's got a 3-up save, which is awesome. Doesn't move very fast, but there's things you can do about that. It can do some damage. It's not the strongest of the Tree Lords when it comes to the amount of attacks it does, but it can do damage. It can definitely do some damage. It's got a 1 ranged attack from its staff. And it's got the standard ability, which is the ground stomp, which, if you roll on a 4-up unit, for each enemy unit within 3 inches before the combat phase, they'll be -1 to hit. Not to you, to everything, which is great. And that does stack with other treemen, by the way. But either way, you get at least that because you have 1 treeman, which is nice. Add that to, say, for instance, the Dryads with their -1 to be hit. They're now -2 to be hit. They're going to be hard to hurt. They have that nice impale ability, so if you've done any wounds with their impaling talons, there's a good chance you might kill outright a big model, even if it's been severely wounded. They can move through the spirit paths. I'll talk about in a second when I talk about the Sylvaneth Wildwood. They have this nice ability called Awakening of the Wood. If you cast it, now they can do the Arcane Bolt and the Mystic Shield, but if you cast this Awakening of the Wood, and there is a Sylvaneth Wildwood anywhere, anywhere within range of 24 inches, any non-Sylvaneth that are within 3 inches of that wildwood will take die 3 mortal wounds. And that's in addition to the inherent ability of the Sylvaneth wildwoods. This is kind of like a compounding of it. So if you have opponents that are near or in these Sylvaneth wildwoods and you cast a spell within range, there's a likelihood that they're going to start taking mortal wounds. And I'll show you the Sylvaneth Wildwoods in a minute. Anybody who knows anything about Sylvaneth knows those can be really detrimental if you're not a Sylvaneth. So yeah, that's going to really hurt your non-Sylvaneth units, which is most of your army. But you could strategically position these things so that they will be a detriment. They could block terrain, and that's a very key thing. Okay. If you have more than one of these, you can move one of these Sylvaneth Wildwoods. You can move between the Wildwoods, so transport to different parts of the board. That's a big deal as well. If you can, let's see. I don't see here where it says that you can summon it, so I guess you can't summon with this one unless I guess you took this spell, and I don't think you do that unless you're Sylvaneth. What's it called again? Allegiant. So I think there's a spell that allows you to summon, for instance, a Sylvaneth Wildwood. So it's not going to do that. Okay, so Sylvaneth Wildwoods, however, let's see. Yeah, this is what's important to your Dryads. I'm going to go pull back the ancient treemen because I had thought they had the ability to summon in a Sylvaneth Wildwood. Here it is. Let's take a look. It does so. Remove the tree lord. Okay, no, it doesn't have it listed here. I'm confused. I thought, is that Durthu? Maybe it's Durthu. Am I looking at just a tree lord? No, it's a tree lord ancient. For some reason, I had thought that they could. Maybe that. I think this is a special Legion Sylvaneth ability. That's why. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and check on that. I'm trying to remember. I've done a lot of these. You got to forgive me. Okay, so what we're talking about here is about 1,660 points. Either way, taking that tree man, you have a tree man, I would take the spellcaster regardless. You can you get your buff, a mystic shield, you got an arcane bolt, and you got something that has 12 wounds and can dish, and can even has a chance to, let's say it was fighting alongside of the forest dragon. Forest dragon makes everybody go last. You go first. You diminish your opponents at the end of the turn, as long as the tree man isn't dead. If it's done any damage with that impaling talons, it could be a 16 wound monster, and if it has 2 wounds left, and you roll, I think you only need to double the wounds. If you roll 4, it's dead completely. All right, just immediately slain. Not a bad thing to have as a backup. Plus the ability to stomp, well worth it in my opinion for 300 points to have a gigantic caster. All right. So what do? We want to try and get either a 1K or 1.5K. You got 1,660 points here. There's a number of things you can do. In a 1,000-point game, you can get rid of your Spellweaver. You can get rid of the tree man. Look, it's going to happen. You get rid of, let's say, your Dryads and your Hawk Riders. No, maybe not. Let's see. Okay, so you get rid of one of the Wild Rider units, and let's get back your 3 Warhawk Riders. Okay, that's your 1,000 points. So, granted, you don't have any spell casting, but there's lots of 1,000 point builds that don't have spell casting. You got your 10 Glade Guard. You got a unit of Wild Riders. You got 3 Warhawks. 1 unit of 10 Eternal Guard, and your Forest Dragon. That Forest Dragon's a lot of points, a big chunk of points. You might consider getting rid of that, but it's 1,000 points, and you want to have something big there, and it's gonna be more survivable in a 1,000 point game too. You have a number of units. You got your battle line here. You break these Glade Guard out into 2 different units, and and if ever there comes to pass that there's a Wanderer only Allegiant book, a battle tome for Wanderers, for Wood Elves. There might be special Allegiant abilities. This is an all Wanderer list. So this is an option for 1,000 points. Let's take a look at what you would need to do to get to 2,000. Okay. So we're going to unhide. Here we go. For 2K, you really need to have your 20 Glade Guard. You're going to need them. All right. You need to break these guys out into 2 different units, meaning you're not going to get that 20 plus acceleration of +1 to hit, but big deal. You got 10 guys. They can shoot. All right. And they qualify as battle line. You need them. For a 2,000 point game, you need 3 battle line units. And your other battle line units can be your Dryads. And your Dryads, you need to get more Dryads for a solid 2K with what you've got. It's not that hard to get a box of or a unit of 8 Dryads. You could find them on eBay or other places. Build up to that. Get that. Get enough so that you can field 2 of these. And why? Not 2 of them, but 20, because then that you get that bonus at the 12 plus, and you have room to lose models until it's below that 12 threshold. So you get that extra bonus to saves. That's pretty good. And being that you're going to be breaking out your Glade Guard into 2 groups, this one could stay at that 1 big level, and I think that's very useful. You're going to have your 3 units of Wild Riders. So you're going to have to get 2 more Wild Riders. That'll give you 15, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's a lot of points. You might want to drop that down to just 2 and see where you can sneak those other points. You might want to, maybe you can get another Spellweaver, or someplace where you can get that 140 points. You might want to get more Hawk Riders or double up your Eternal Guard. It really depends on you. I think that having your Wild Riders at 3 units is helpful, because you can have 1 unit of 10 and 1 unit of 5. And that will allow you to zip around the board into several different places and try to gain objectives, try to harry, some of those smaller things like, heroes or War Machine crew. And then you still have a unit of 10 that you can do a charge and kind of just support whatever else you need to do from outside of range of your opponent. Once your, say your Eternal Guard gets stuck in somewhere. This is your mobile, shock unit that's going to just, again, strike from out of range of your opponent to being able to do so. And they're going to be able to zip around the board. We also have 3 Warhawk Riders, like before. Choose to field them as 3 individuals or as 1, or any combination thereof. 1 unit of 3, whatever. But I think it's good to have them. They're also there to, take out the stragglers and those weak targets that are going to hit you from long range. You need to try to drop those quickly, because your game is long range. Your game is mobility. And if there's things that can reach out and touch you from halfway across or all the way across the board, you got to stop them. So you need more of these guys. You have your Spellweaver still. Your Eternal Guard is only 10 still. That's all I put in there. I think that you can do well with the 10, especially with the ability to kind of heal back a few bodies. You still have your Forest Dragon, your Tree Man, your 20 Dryads, but you need more. You're at 1920 then for getting to a 2,000 point army. And I looked at 2 different things. I looked at the Way Watcher and the Nomad Prince. They're 80 points. That'll get you to 2,000. So let's take a look. The Way Watcher. Why are we talking about the Way Watcher? Okay. So let's zoom in on the fun Way Watcher. 5 wound model, 4 up save, which is not bad. He's got 3 attacks with his bow at 22-inch range. Kind of an unusual number, but hey, that's not bad. And it's a 1-1 rend. It's going to be able to do some interesting stuff. Nothing to go crazy with, but you have some of these other things that can add on to it. You have fast shots, precise shots. It adds precise shots can add -2 to the rend. That's always good. A fast shot will get you additional attack if you roll 6. It's not so sexy, but it's there. You add 1 to hit rolls. If you didn't move in the preceding movement phase, that's big, because that 3 up becomes a 2 up. Yeah. Okay. I mean, this guy's 80 points. All right. He's 5 wounds and he's got some extra stuff. Is he going to be a killer? No, but he's good. He's decent, and he could make him your general. Sit him back way outside of the range to be getting touched, behind enemy lines, behind your screening units, and just shoot stuff. And he won't be hurt as easily. Can he? Will he die? Is there ways to kill him? Sure, but it's going to be harder, and the opponent's going to have to devote resources to doing so. In the meantime, you can do stuff with it. And he has this not so bad ability, command ability. The way you watch uses this ability until your next hero phase, wanderers from your army that are within 18 inches of him gain the invisible hunter ability. Now, let's just establish here. This is not one unit. This is all wanderers, which is most of your army. Everything except for Sylvaneth. Within 18 inches, meaning everything that's not all the way up in the other side of the board will gain this ability. And the invisible hunters is you subtract 1 from all shooting rolls against that opponent. Now, being that you're trying to be a mobile army, you don't want to get stuck into combat, close combat, if you're not sure you can win. And if you can't win, you better retreat out of there and find a way to, recover from that. But if you're just being shot at, hey, well, good luck, because if you're a wanderer unit, this guy's going to give you a further -1. And let's also realize that if they're shooting from anywhere near the Dryads going to incur a -1 to be hitting against them. If there's a stomp thing going on, there's units that may be in close combat, they still can shoot. And there's no restrictions like in old editions of Warhammer in terms of what you can shoot. If you can see it, you can shoot. Being involved in a close combat doesn't eliminate that. So now you're incurring another -1 if that stomp happened because you're near the Tree Lord. There's a lot of -1s here that apply to not just close combat, but this is going to make it very hard for anybody to shoot and snipe off not just this way watcher, but anything else that they want to try and get at that might be beneficial for them. So not a bad command ability, not one of the greatest ones that we've seen, but certainly something to be consider, and works very well synergistically with this list. So I definitely would consider the Way Watcher, and that would get you to 2,000 points. But there's also this Nomad Prince, something to consider. Don't sell the Nomad Prince short, all right? So Nomad Prince, also a 5-wound unit. He's a little slower. So he's only moves at 6 inches, but that's pretty good. That's, elf move. He's got a nice long range again bow ability. He's got the hunting hawk, and that's nice. I like the hunting hawk. And what I would do with the hunting hawk, this guy's all about the friggin' hunting hawk, by the way. Every turn, targeted against a different character or monster. And because it's really not going to be that effective against an individual unit in an individual model in a unit. But what happens is, and if you do the damage, it's not that thing's dead anyway. What happens is that Hunting Hawk is going after the eyes. It's kind of like the old school. What was that movie? Boo Boo the Eye, the mechanical owl, Clash of the Titans. Yeah, that's what this guy does. He's going to go after the eyes, and if he goes and does it, if it's killed but not slain, which is typically going to be a multi-wound model, probably a monster or a hero, it's going to have to subtract 1 from any hit rolls for the rest of the game. Yeah, every turn, target another hero, target another monster. Go at that's a beautiful move. As long as you can hit and wound that guy. In addition to all the other minuses, the subtractions, that could really neuter even a really, really powerful model or monster or hero that normally would just walk through stuff. Now it's got a -1 on top of the other minuses that you could be incurring from the Tree Men, from the Dryads, and make it really hard for that guy to do any damage. That's not a bad thing. That's a pretty nice utility ability, and it's got a 20-inch range, so you could be out of dodge, away from damage, away from trouble, and still use it. So use it. He can reroll failed saves. Whoop-de-doo. He's got a 4-up save. You're probably going to put him in terrain, so he's going to get a cover. He's going to be at a 3-up. Not bad. Not bad at all. He can do some damage in close combat. 4 attacks, 3-up, -1 rend, and a 2 damage. Not bad. So he's not a bruiser, but he can definitely do some work. You don't want to rush him out there. He's not going to be able to do it solo. And then if you want him to be your general, you have the command ability that allows you to reroll hit rolls of 1. For all Wanderer units within 8 inches of him. So you put him behind enemy lines, you use your Warhawk ability, maybe even you have a 2-inch range on your spear, maybe even put him behind a rank of your Eternal Guard. And, again, send out your Hawk to, neuter some of the big behemoths and characters within range. And then your command ability will allow you hit rolls of 1, which makes a lot of these other units that are not so great with, mediocre to hits a lot better. Because they're going to get more hits in. So not a bad set of choices with, hard choices to make. But those 80-point options will give you a decent general to get you up to 2,000. And I kind of think that, there's a couple things that you'll need to, Rob, to close the gaps and find a way to make this list, kind of work. There is some good synergy here. It's not perfect, but there's some plans. There's some strategies. You've got a mobile army, decent shooting, good, better than decent, with some utility things that will give some enemies fits and the ability to kind of claim and take objectives anywhere on the battlefield, far out of range of your opponent, and some utilities that can actually take and hold things like your Dryads and your Eternal Guard sitting somewhere where they can just stand there and hold the objective while you're just, throwing out spells, shooting from range, and ruining your opponent's synergies by taking out their heroes or their artillery, taking away some of the things that make them better at what they do. So not perfect, but it's there, and there are options. So hope this is, hope you like the advice and the suggestions, and looking forward to seeing, what you come up with and how your successes work. Glad to hear that there's another person joining the ranks of the Age of Sigmar, the Warhammer game, and good luck to you. And if you're really interested in the game, hey, consider looking at some other army options, either to bolster this one or, going in a different direction and starting anew, because there's a lot of great choices out there. Whether you want to add on to a Wood Elf theme with a lot of order stuff, or you want to start over with a brand new army and get on some oval round bases because they look much cooler than those squares. Either way, I think you got a good value for your army. And even though they're on squares, they're decently painted, so they're going to look pretty good on the battlefield. At least they're not just gray. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.